They say the world never forgets a little act of kindness. But what if that small kindness is the key to opening a destiny no one ever expected? Today, you will hear the story of a poor water seller, a boy mocked and rejected by his people, whose simple decision to give without expecting anything in return changed his life forever. If you are just coming across this channel for the first time, please subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and don't forget to like this video. Grab your popcorn and stay with me, for every moment of this story carries a secret waiting to be uncovered. The cock crowed long before dawn, but Obinna was already awake. Sleep rarely stayed with him for long. His nights were filled with the restless thoughts of hunger, of the long journey to the stream, and of his sick mother lying on her raffia mat, coughing weakly through the darkness. The small hut they lived in stood at the far edge of the village, as though poverty itself had pushed them away from the others. The roof was leaking, patched with old palm fronds that could not fully keep out the rain. The clay walls had cracked quite enough for lizards to sleep through, but for Obinna, it was home. The only place he had left since his father's death. His father had been a palm wine tapper, strong and cheerful, until the day he fell from the tall iroko tree and never rose again. From that day, Obinna's life had changed. He was only 12 when it happened, but the world did not wait for him to grow up. Responsibilities fell on his shoulders, too heavy for his age. Now 16, Obinna had grown taller, leaner, but his face carried a sadness far older than his years. Every day he fetched water from the stream, balancing heavy jerrycans on his head to sell in the village square. The money he made was barely enough for food, but it kept his mother alive. That morning, as the first rays of sunlight painted the sky, Obinna gently touched his mother's arm. "Mama," he whispered, "I'm going now. Rest well. I will bring something for you to eat." His mother's eyes fluttered open. They were tired eyes, ringed with sickness, yet they still held love. "My son," she croaked, "do not work too hard. The gods will not forget you." Obinna smiled faintly, though inside his chest, his heart tightened. He tied a piece of cloth around his forehead to keep the sweat from blinding him, lifted 2 empty jerrycans, and began the long walk to the stream. The path was rough and dusty. Every step kicked up clouds of red earth that clung to his bare feet. Birds chirped in the distance, and the sound of women pounding yam echoed faintly from the village. But Obinna's mind was fixed on the stream ahead. When he reached it, he bent down and scooped water into the jerrycans and tightened the covers. The jerrycans were so heavy that his shoulders screamed in protest as he lifted them. His muscles trembled, but he gritted his teeth. "This is for Mama," he told himself. "I must endure." The journey back was worse. The sun had risen high, scorching his back as though it sought to punish him. Sweat poured down his face, and his leg wobbled under the crushing weight. Yet, step by step, he pushed forward. By the time he reached the marketplace, the square was already alive with noise. Traders shouted to advertise their wares: spices, palm oil, yams, and smoked fish. Children ran about chasing one another, and women bargained loudly with the sellers. Obinna set down his jerrycans, wiped his forehead with the back of his arm, and called out softly, "Water, cool water for sale." Some people came to buy, tossing him coins without looking at his face, but many ignored him. Others laughed openly. "Ah, see him again," one man said mockingly, "always carrying water like a donkey." A group of children giggled, "Sweaty Obinna, sweaty Obinna," they chanted as they skipped around him. His throat tightened. He wanted to shout back, to tell them they did not understand what it meant to suffer hunger, to watch a mother grow weak each day. But he swallowed his pain, forcing a smile as if their words did not touch him. "Thank you," he said quietly, each time someone brought water, though most never even answered. When his jerrycans were nearly empty, he sat under a tree at the edge of the market to rest. His muscles ached so badly that he thought his bones might shatter. He stared at the few coins in his hand. Would they be enough for food and medicine? Probably not, but it was all he had. His mind drifted back to memories of his father. He remembered the laughter that used to fill their halls, The evenings when his father told him stories by the fire, those days felt like a dream now, distant and unreachable. He closed his feet tightly around the coins, whispering to himself, I will not give up. One day, things will change. But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his heart. What if things never changed? What if this whole life was destined to be nothing but sweat, mockery, and hunger? He looked at the rich men in the markets with their fine clothes and buckets full of food, and bitterness pricked his thumbs. Why them and not me? He thought. What did I do to deserve this life? His eyes burned, but he refused to let tears fall. He stood, lifted his jerrycans once more, and walked towards the street where the Wadia home stood. If he could say to them, maybe he would have enough for that evening meal. Yet, every step, his body felt heavier, as if the earth itself wanted to keep him down. He could feel the eyes of the villagers on him, their whispers, their laughter, their careless disregard. He was invisible to them, except as a source of ridicule. But in his heart, a quiet flame still flickered. It was small, almost dying, but it was there. The hope that one day, somehow, life would be different. And so Obinna walked on, carrying his heavy burden, unaware that the destiny was already watching him, waiting for the moment when his kindness would shine like a hidden jewel in the dust. The sun climbed higher, burning fiercely over the village like mountain fire. The air shimmered with heat, and the ground beneath Obinna's bare feet felt as though it might scorch his skin. His jerrycan lodged heavily against his side as he toggled down a lonely path that led towards the Wadia compounds. Each step was agony. His back ached, his arms felt like lead, and his lip cracked with thirst. He had kept the last little water in his gourd for his mother, refusing to take even a sip for himself. Hunger gone at his belly, but he pressed forward, whispering to himself, just a little more. Mama is waiting. Up ahead, beneath the shadow of a giant iroko tree, Obinna noticed a figure. It was an old man, his body frail, his clothes torn and dusty as if he had wandered the roads for many days. His hair was white like cotton, and his head rested weakly against the trunk. His chest rose and fell in the shallow breaths, and his dry tongue struggled to wet his cracked lips. The villagers passing by glanced at him and turned away. Some even laughed. Another useless beggar, one woman muttered, let him die there. The earth will swallow him soon enough, another one said coldly. Obinna slowed his steps. He looked at the man and then at the water on his head. His mind wrestled with fear and reason. If I give him water, what will I sell? Mama needs food. If I waste even a drop, how will we survive? He took a shaking breath and turned to leave. But as he lifted his foot, he heard a faint groan from the old man. The sound pierced his heart like a spear. He stopped, his throat tightening. What if this were his father lying helpless by the road? What if one day, someone found his sick mother and refused her mercy? Obinna set down his jerrycan slowly. His hands trembled as he untied the calabash hanging from his side. He scooped water carefully and knelt before the man. Baba, here, please drink, he said softly. The old man's eyelids fluttered open. For a moment, his dull eyes gleamed with light as he gazed at the boy. With shaky hands, he lifted the calabash to his lips and drank. Each swallow seemed to bring life back into his body. Obinna found him gently with a palm leaf, whispering, take your time, Baba. Rest. When the old man had finished, he looked straight into Obinna's eyes. His voice was faint but carried a strange strength. My son, you gave when you had little. You shall never be forgotten. Obinna bowed his head quickly, embarrassed. It was nothing, Baba. Please, rest well. I must go. He lifted his jerrycan once more and staggered back onto the road, not realizing that this simple act had just shifted the course of his life forever. The days turned into weeks, and life in the village moved on as though nothing has changed. Obinna kept selling water, carrying his heavy jerrycans through the dusty roads, and caring for his sick mother as best as he could. The memory of the old man beneath the iroko tree soon faded into the background of his daily struggle. But in the grand palace at the center of the village, a storm was rising. King Ezekiel was a man of great strength and wisdom. For many years, he ruled with a firm but kind hand, keeping peace among his people. But one evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, a strange sickness gripped him. At first, it seemed like a mere fever. The royal healers pounded herbs, boiled roots, and rubbed sacred oil on his body. But instead of healing, the king grew weaker each day. His skin burned with heat one moment, then turned pale and cold the next. His voice, once loud and commanding, became faint and broken. The palace buzzed with panic. Messengers ran in and out. Drummers beat their talking drum to summon healers from neighboring villages. Yet nothing worked. Whispers soon spread among the people. "This is not ordinary sickness," the elders murmured. "Maybe the gods are angry," others said. "Or perhaps an enemy has caused him," some whispered with fear. The wealthy men of the village saw the sickness as an opportunity. They arrived at the palace with gifts, fat goats, chicken, baskets of yam, and bags of cowries. Each one bowed low before the queen mother, hoping their generosity will make them favored in the royal court if the king died. But the queen mother's eyes were full of sorrow. "Your gifts cannot heal my son," she said coldly. The days dragged on, and hope began to fade. The king's breathing was shallow, his body wasted, and his eyes barely opened. Darkness seemed to hang over the palace like a heavy cloud. Then one hot afternoon, as the villagers gathered at the market square to gossip about the king's condition, and a strange figure appeared at the palace gates. It was an old man, frail, dusty, his clothes torn, his bare feet blistered, his hair shone white like moonlight, and his staff tapped against the ground as he walked. The palace guards burst into laughter. "Old man, go away," one guard sneered. "Do you think this is a resting place for beggars?" another shouted. But the old man's eyes glowed with an intensity that froze them where they stood. He raised his hand slowly and said in a voice that carried power, "Take me to the king. I am his brother, long lost to the world, and I alone know what will heal him." The guards exchanged glances at first. They thought he was mad, but something in his words made their hearts tremble. A strange silence fell over them, and without fully understanding why, they led him inside. When the queen mother saw him, her hands flew to her mouth. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "Chinonso, my husband's brother, but you vanished so many years ago." The old man nodded slowly. "I wandered far, forgotten by men but never by the gods. Now I have returned, for this sickness is beyond herbs and charms. Only truth and kindness can cure him." The chiefs frowned, suspicious. "Old man, what are you saying? Do you think we have not tried enough? The king is dying." But the old man lifted his staff and struck it once again against the floor. The sound echoed like thunder through the chamber. "The king will not die, but the cure lies not in the riches or sacrifices. Bring before me the one who showed kindness when the whole world mocked me. Bring the boy who gave me water when he had little." Murmurs filled the palace. What boy is he talking about? Who would help such a beggar? The old man's eyes blazed. "Find him. Without him, the king cannot rise from this bed." The queen mother trembled, torn between hope and fear. She ordered the guards to search the village, but none of the wealthy traders admitted to helping an old beggar. None of the chiefs could recall such a moment. Finally, one market woman spoke hesitantly. "There is a boy, Obinna, the water seller. I once saw him stop on the lonely road near the iroko tree. Perhaps he is the one." The guards frowned. Could he really be that poor boy, mocked and despised by everyone? But the old man's voice thundered again. "Yes, bring me Obinna. He alone holds the key." And so, as the sun dipped low in the sky, the search for the poor water seller began. Unaware that his life was about to be dragged into the center of the greatest secret the village had ever known. Evening had settled over the village, painting the sky in streaks of red and cold, when the sound of heavy footsteps thundered through the market square. "Where is the boy called Obinna?" the guards shouted. Their spears glinting in the fading light, the villagers turned to stare. Some gasped, others laughed mockingly. Obinna, what trouble has he caused now? Did he steal from the palace? I knew this boy would one day bring shame. Obinna froze where he stood, his jerrycan still balanced on his tired shoulders. His heart leaped into his throat. Had he done something wrong? He had never even stepped near the palace gates before. Two guards seized him roughly by the arm. Come with us. The palace demands your presence. Obinna dropped his jerrycan in shock. Coins scattered onto the dusty ground, but no one bothered to help him pick them. He looked at the guards with wide, trembling eyes. Please, what have I done? The guards did not answer. They dragged him through the crowded market. Children pointed and laughed. See, sweaty Obinna is now a criminal. Women whispered, shaking their heads. What a disgrace. Obinna's chest burned with humiliation. He thought of his sick mother waiting at home, wondering if she could ever see him again. His mind swelled with fear. When they reached the palace gates, the guards shoved him forward. The sight before him stole his breath. Tall walls decorated with carved marks and royal symbols loomed above him. Torches burned brightly, casting frequently shadows across the compound. Obinna felt smaller than an ant. Inside the great hall was crowded. Chiefs sat in their red caps and flowing wrappers, their walking sticks tapping impatiently against the ground. The queen mother sat behind the king's bed, her face pale with worry, and in the center stood the old man from the iroko tree, his staff glowing faintly in the torchlight. Obinna's knees buckled. He whispered in disbelief, "It's him." The old man's gaze softened. He pointed at Obinna and declared, "This is the boy. This is the one who gave me water when the whole world turned away." Gasps filled in the hall. Chiefs murmured in confusion. That poor water seller? Impossible. He is nothing but a beggar's son. But the old man lifted his staff, silencing them. When I was thirsty and near death, none of you cared. But this boy, though poor and hungry, gave what little he had. His kindness carries a power greater than riches. The queen mother turned to Obinna, her voice trembling. "My son, do not be afraid. Come closer." Obinna's legs shook as he approached the king's bed. He had never seen such grandeur before. The king lay motionless, his body drenched in sweat, his lips pale as ash. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. The old man placed a calabash of water in Obinna's hands. "Give him to drink," he commanded. Obinna hesitated. "Me? But I'm only—" "Do not doubt," the old man said firmly. "The gods have chosen you." Obinna's hands trembled as he lifted the calabash to the king's lips. Slowly he poured the cool water into the dying man's mouth. At first, nothing happened. A murmur of disappointment rippled through the hall. But then, the king's chest heaved. His eyelids fluttered open. Color returned to his face. He coughed, then sat upright. His voice hoarse but alive. "Water so sweet. Who gave me this?" The hall erupted in cries of astonishment. Chiefs fell to their knees. Drummers outside beat their talking drums in wild celebration. The king had risen. The old man lifted his staff high. It was this boy, Obinna, the water seller. His kindness had saved you. The king turned his gaze to Obinna. His eyes, once clouded with sickness, now shone with gratitude. "Young man, what is your name?" Obinna bowed deeply, his whole body trembling. "My name is Obinna, son of late Nnamdi." The king smiled faintly. "Then, Obinna, son of Nnamdi, from this day forward, you are no longer a boy mocked by the world. You are a son of this palace. Whatever you desire shall be yours." The queen mother embraced him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "May the gods bless you, my child." The chiefs, though jealous, had no choice but to nod in respect. The villagers outside whispered in disbelief. The same boy they had mocked, the sweaty water seller, had just saved the life of the king. That night, Obinna was given fine clothes, food in abundance, and a place to sleep inside the palace walls. But as he lay on the soft mat, staring at the decorated ceilings, his heart was heavy with only one thought: "Mama, I must bring Mama here." And in the shadows of the hall, the old man smiled knowingly. Destiny had just begun to unfold. The morning after the king's miraculous recovery, the entire village gathered before the palace gates. Drums beat in thunderous rhythm, announcing the great news. Messengers ran from compound to compound, shouting, "The king lives! The king has risen!" Men, women, and children poured into the palace square, their faces full of disbelief. Some expected it to be rumor, others thought it must be a trick. But when they saw the king step out, standing tall and strong, the crowd erupted into cries of joy. Eziahu is alive. Long live the king. The drummers struck harder. The flutists blew until their cheeks ached, and the women looted so loudly that even the birds took flight from the trees. But their joy turned to confusion when the king raised his hand for silence and commanded, "Bring forth the boy who gave me life." All eyes turned towards Obinna. He stood shyly at the edge of the great hall, still dressed in the fine wrapper that the queen mother had given him. The villagers gasped and murmured, "Obinna, that water seller, the same one we mocked yesterday. Impossible." Obinna's heart pounded as he walked slowly to the king. He could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes burning into his back. His legs trembled, but he kept moving, step by step, until he stood before the throne. The king looked at him with deep gratitude. "This boy," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd, "was chosen by the gods to save me. When wealth and power failed, it was kindness that restored my life, and that kindness flowed from the heart of this boy." The old man, the king's long-lost brother, stepped forward and lifted his staff. His voice boomed like thunder. "When I was thirsty and dying beneath the iroko tree, not one of you came to my aid. You mocked me, you despised me, but this boy, poor, hungry, rejected, gave me water with his own hands. His little act of kindness has shaken the heavens and opened the path of destiny." A heavy silence fell over the crowd. Shame burned their hearts as they remembered how they mocked Obinna, how they called him sweaty Obinna, and laughed at his poverty. The king raised his staff high. "From this day forward, Obinna shall be counted among the sons of the palace. He will no longer carry water for his survival. He shall have land, cattle, servants, and a place among my advisers." The chiefs, though jealous, had no choice but to bow their heads. The villagers fell to their knees, chanting, "Obinna, Obinna." But Obinna, overwhelmed, dropped to the ground and pressed his forehead against the earth. "My king, I am not worthy of such honor. I only gave water to a thirsty man. It was nothing." The old man smiled knowingly. "You call it nothing, my son, but the heavens call it everything." Tears filled Obinna's eyes. His mind went back to his mother, lying weak and hungry in their little hut. He turned to the king and whispered, his voice trembling, "My lord, if you will bless me with anything, let me bring my mother here. She has suffered too long." The king's eyes softened. "So be it." That very evening, guards were sent to Obinna's hut. The villagers followed in amazement as the once forgotten woman was lifted gently and carried to the palace. When she opened her weary eyes and saw her son dressed in fine clothes, she began to weep. "My Obinna, my son, what has happened?" Obinna held her hand tightly, his own tears flowing. "Mama, the gods remembered us. Your suffering is over." The queen mother herself cared for her, feeding her warm meals and giving her medicine. Within weeks, her strength returned. For the first time in many years, she laughed again, her voice ringing through the palace halls. Obinna's life transformed overnight. No longer did he walk dusty paths with heavy jerrycans. No longer did children mock him or women whispered about his poverty. Instead, he was honored everywhere he went. Farmers offered him the best yams. Traders greeted him with deep bows, and children followed him with admiration in their eyes. Yet, Obinna did not grow proud. He remembered the stink of hunger, the pain of mockery, and the weight of poverty. He used his new position not for himself, but for others. He gave food to the poor, bought medicine for the weak, and built a well in the market square so no one could ever thirst again. When people asked him why he was so generous, he would smile and reply, "Because I know what it means to have nothing. Kindness is the greatest wealth a man can carry." The story of Obinna spread far and wide. Travelers carried it to neighboring villages, telling of the poor water seller who saved a king. Parents told their children by the fireside, warning them never to despise the weak or ignore the suffering. And so Obinna's name lived on, not just as a palace advisor, not just as the boy who gave water, but as a symbol of how one small act of kindness can ripple across the world like a pebble dropped into a river. The old man, the king's brother, eventually departed again, walking into the forest with his staff. Before he left, he placed a hand on Obinna's shoulders and said, "Your story has just begun. Walk with kindness, and the gods will walk with you." Obinna bowed deeply. "I will never forget, Papa." From that day, he lived not only for himself, but for others, knowing that kindness, though small, though simple, holds the power to change destinies. And whenever he walked through the village, mothers would call their children and whisper, "There goes Obinna, the boy who proved that a little act of kindness can change a life forever." This story reminds us that even the smallest act of kindness can open doors that riches and power cannot. Never underestimate the good you do, because one little act may be the key to changing your life forever. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it so others can learn too. And if you want to hear more stories filled with wisdom and life lessons, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on your notification bell so you never miss the next tale that may change your life.